welcome to Dispatches from India, a show by People's Dispatch where we bring you major news developments from the country, the issues Indians are talking about, and their implications on politics, economy, and society. We will first get into our News This Week section. Today we start with a story about workers' victory. On September 14, the top officials of the Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women informed their sanitation workers that all of them would be fired effective from the next day, owing to an expiry of a tender with the contractual company. The workers began a long strike against the notice. They sat on a hunger strike beginning October 20, but the administration allegedly did not pay any attention. The next day, the employees demonstrated semi-naked at the CM residence. During that demonstration, the police removed the protesters using brute force. Later, the Chief Minister's office called the representatives of the workers for talks, soon after which, the university administration accepted all their demands in writing. The notice assures the workers that even if there's a change in tender, no worker will be let go. The state government of Tamil Nadu recently announced free bus tickets for women passengers in the local buses. The announcement was widely appreciated. However, a few sections have criticized the hasty implementation. One of the policy's major drawbacks is that bus drivers and conductors who collect money from passengers have lost their daily subsistence money. Earlier, at the end of every trip, they were given an allowance based on the amount of tickets sold. This makes it a considerable loss for transportation workers in Tamil Nadu. They are demanding fair compensation for this loss in ticket sales. Here is a ground report.
அந்த சூழ்நிலையில் இருக்கும்போது நாங்கள் இந்த பேட்டாவை நம்பி தான் நாங்கள் டீ குடிப்போம்.
கடந்த காலங்களில் கலெக்ஷனு ஆவரேஜாக ஒரு 3500 ரூபாய் ஒரு வண்டிக்கு கலெக்ஷன் என்பது இருந்தது. இப்போ பார்த்தீங்கன்னா 1500 ரூபாவை தாண்டது பெரிய விஷயமா இருக்குது. இப்படி இருக்கும்போது டிஃபனு ஒரு வேளை டிஃபனு மினிமம் சாப்பிட்டாலுமே 40 ரூபா ஆகும். ஒரு டீ இன்னைக்கு 10 ரூபா. 3 டீ சாப்பிடுவாங்க, டிஃபன் சாப்பிடுவாங்க. கையில் பணம் எடுத்துகிட்டு போன பேட்டாவில் மிச்சப்படுத்தி கையில் பணம் எடுத்துகிட்டு போய் குடும்பம் நடத்தின தொழிலாளிலாம் உண்டு. இங்கே பெரும்பகுதி தொழிலாளி பேட்டாவை நம்பி செலவு பண்ணிவிட்டு மிச்ச பணத்தை வீட்டுக்கு எடுத்து போன நிலமெல்லாம் இருந்தது. இப்பொழுது என்ன நிலைமை மாறி போயிருக்குன்னா, தினமும் 100 ரூபா டிரைவரும் கண்டக்டரும் எடுத்துகிட்டு வரக்கூடிய ஏற்பாட்டுக்குள்ளே தமிழக அரசு எங்களை தள்ளி இருக்குது.
In Tamil Nadu, total 22 buses are operating. Out of this, 7,312 town buses, that is ordinary buses, are plying in Tamil Nadu. In these 7,312 buses, women can travel free of cost. That is the announcement by this government. This government has allotted in the budget 5,350 rupees per day per bus on an average to the corporations as to reimbursement for the free travel of the women. The government is reimbursing 5,350 rupees per bus per day for the buses 7,312. This is announced. But the point is, the dispute is, according to the Motor Transport Workers Act, BATA is a statutory obligation to the employer. They have to give BATA. This is not there in other industry. But other industry, there is a canteen and a fixed time of working and this. That facility in a transport industry, in a transport bus service, not possible. Because 4 o'clock in the early morning and after 12 o'clock in the midnight, the people are coming and going. The time is different. So they have to have some money to have tea, lunch, or such of those things. That makes the government at that time to make the BATA as a statutory thing. That is there in the act also. Now the government cannot deprive the BATA itself. After this 5,350 rupees less collections in a bus because of the government's decision, the conductors and drivers are losing their money, and subsequently technical staff also losing their money, what they are getting earlier before this announcement.
India crossed the 1 billion COVID-19 vaccinations milestone last week. It is indeed a piece of great news and a milestone for dealing with the pandemic across the world. A major part in this achievement was played by health workers, many of whom are paid pittance. However, some experts have pointed out some devils in the details. For instance, only around 30% of Indians are fully vaccinated, according to government data. Also, while around 3/4 of adults have received one jab of the vaccine, around 250 million adults have not even got that. And they are mostly the most marginalized sections of the populations, tribals, etc. All this calls to question the government's plan of vaccinating all of India's 0.94 billion adults before this year. Here is immunologist Dr. Satyajit Rath speaking on the success and further challenges.
It's interesting to reflect on the gains and the limitations of India's COVID vaccination campaign on the occasion of about 1 billion doses of COVID vaccines having been given in India in the COVID vaccination effort. 1 billion doses is a substantial and notable achievement. There's no question about that. It needs to be seen in perspective because India has a population of 1.3 plus billion people. So in proportionate terms, as a percentage of the population, India's fully vaccinated population is still just over 20%. India's single dose vaccinated individual proportion as a fraction of the population is still about 60-something%. So it's not as if 1 billion doses have provided massive vaccination coverage for the Indian population at large. This is good progress, but a great deal more of progress is still remaining to be made, number one. Number two, it is noteworthy that India has gone from 10% of its population fully vaccinated to 20% of its population fully vaccinated with a gap of about 7 weeks or so. And if that's the pace, then all of us can do the arithmetic of how long it's going to take before a majority of India's population gets vaccinated. None of this is to say that this is not good progress. It is to say that much more work still remains to be done. The pity in India's vaccination campaign is that the vaccination campaign has not, apparently, at least from public data domain, been organized enough to take advantage of these huge numbers and collecting data on a large scale on the immunogenicity of vaccines, on the relative performance of different vaccines, at least 2 vaccines, especially since one of those is an inactivated virus vaccine, which is not as widely used as the adenoviral or the mRNA vaccines. Those data don't seem to have been put together. As a matter of fact, not simply have data not been apparently gathered in large numbers, but also the databases don't seem to be providing easily accessible data. And all of that is a limitation on the value that can be extracted for understanding the epidemiology, the vaccine responsiveness, and related issues of great public health interest. And it's to be hoped that that will be put together in the weeks and months to come in India's vaccination campaign. And clearly, India's effort over the past few months of vaccinating its own population has been, in a certain sense, at the cost of slowing down supply of contractually manufactured vaccine, particularly the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, to the WHO COVAX initiative, which has resulted in a slowdown in turn from the COVAX sourcing to a very large number of countries of the global south. And it is to be hoped that as India's numbers seem to have picked up to this point, that as the government of India has indicated, supplies to the COVAX initiative will now resume with much higher proportions, much higher numbers of supplied vaccine doses, and will therefore be of help to the communities of the global south at large.
Next, we get into our In Focus section where we take a deeper look at some of the burning issues in the country. As we reported earlier on this show, on October 3, in a shocking incident, 4 farmers were killed when a car linked to a government minister ran over them. The farmers were protesting the 3 agriculture laws passed by the Modi government, which have led to one of the biggest protests in the country's history. The son of the minister in question was reportedly in the car that ran over the farmers. He was arrested nearly a week after the incident. However, the farmers are unhappy that the minister Ajay Mishra Teni continues to be in position of authority. In fact, he is the Minister of State for Home and is thus responsible for internal security. Ever since October 3, protests have been taking place in many parts of the country. On October 18, farmers across the country blocked rail tracks, demanding the dismissal of the minister and justice for those killed. We bring you a report from one such action in the state of Haryana.
जो भी आवाज उठाने की कोशिश करेगा, उस आवाज को ये सरकार कुचलने का प्रयास करेगी, उस आवाज को ये दबाने का प्रयास करेगी।
हमें अपने देश की जो न्याय प्रक्रिया है उस पे भरोसा है और सरकार को आज नहीं तो कल न्याय के लिए और जांच के लिए मजबूर होना ही पड़ेगा।
देखिए, इसका पॉलिटिकल मैसेज ये है कि जो वर्तमान सरकार है वो गुंडों का साथ दे रही है। हम तो ये कहते हैं कि ये जो पूरा हत्याकांड हुआ, ये 3 तारीख को नहीं, इसकी शुरुआत 25 तारीख को हुई थी, जब केंद्रीय गृह राज्य मंत्री अजय मिश्र ने ये कहा था कि मैं विधायक, सांसद और मंत्री बनने से पहले क्या था ये सब लोग जानते हैं। क्या थे उससे पहले? वो तस्कर थे, आज भी तस्करी करते हैं। क्या थे उससे पहले? वो गुंडागर्दी करते थे, अपहरण जैसे मुकदमे, हत्या जैसे मुकदमे, 4 मुकदमे उनके ऊपर चल रहे थे। तो एक बात ये समझने की है कि मोदी सरकार के मंत्री, केंद्रीय गृह राज्य मंत्री, जिनकी जिम्मेदारी देश की सुरक्षा करना है, वो इस बात को कहने में गर्व महसूस कर रहे हैं कि वो गुंडे थे। यदि उस समय केंद्रीय गृह मंत्री और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने संज्ञान लेके उनके ऊपर कार्रवाई की होती, यदि उस समय उनको बर्खास्त किया होता, तो शायद उनके ये 3 तारीख को इस तरह के हत्याकांड को अंजाम ना दिया जाता।
किसान ने तो आजादी की लड़ाई में भी योगदान दिया बहुत भारी, और ये देश को तोड़ रहे हैं। ये सिर्फ एक समुदाय को आगे ले जाना चाहते हैं, और उसमें भी जो धनाढ्य हैं, जो अपर कास्ट के जो लोग हैं, उनके सहारे से देश चला, ऐसे देश नहीं चलता।
The Global Hunger Index ranked India 101 in a list of 116 countries. The report mentions that state of hunger in India is serious. In an official response, the central government rubbished the report and said that it doesn't paint a fair picture of hunger in the country. However, reports from the ground only confirm the fact that the state of hunger in India is grave despite government granaries overflowing with surplus grain. We talked to Deepa Sinha, an activist with the Right to Food campaign, to understand the grave state of hunger and malnutrition in the country. Have a look.
The contradiction of this hunger situation in India is that at the same time as we see this increasing food insecurity, we also have the highest levels of food grain stocks in the public warehouses in our country. This is grain that the government buys from farmers. It's mainly rice and wheat, and we have about 100 million tons now. What this basically shows is the complete mismanagement of the food economy, where the procurement is happening, but distribution to those who require these grains is something where we see a gap. And this is again largely taking place because the government wants to contain its subsidy, and therefore it's restricting its additional benefits even during COVID times to only those who are already under the beneficiary lists. And the large population, especially migrants, homeless populations, the old, people belonging to tribal communities, one knows have been left out of these lists because of various reasons. And they have not yet been included by expanding the net. So we have this very unethical situation where on the one hand we have grains in fact rotting out in the open because we don't have the space to store all of it, and on the other hand we have a lot of people who are actually going hungry and not even getting their basic 3 meals a day. Further issue of concern, which again when you look at the Government of India's response to the report, is that they've listed out a number of things that they have done in response to COVID. It's true that government did a number of things like they have listed, but that has been really inadequate in comparison to the scale of the problem. Based on ground reports and a number of independent surveys that have been carried out by academics and civil society organizations, we know that post-COVID, the situation of hunger and food insecurity has worsened. So we have many other indicators which tell us economic growth has slowed down. that the situation of hunger could be worse, that there is a cause for concern. But it's unfortunate that the government's response has been one of denial, and denial therefore also means that all the additional measures that need to be taken to address the situation are not being done at all.
That's all there is for this week. Next week, we'll be back with more news from India. To know more about these and other such stories, keep watching People's Dispatch.